The end of World War II left some in victory and some in defeat. Most believed that the ending of the war would bring global peace, but this was not the case for the people of West Berlin and East Germany. The Berlin Wall's overnight construction would change people's lives and stood as a physical symbol of separation and dysfunctionality of the nation for decades. Germany became divided after World War II and was split up into two parts. East Germany became communist, which left many people starving and poor. Many people began to flee from East Germany due to its horrible conditions. The Berlin blockade was a plan to cut off the Allies' ties to the Soviet-controlled parts of Berlin to attempt to remove the Allies' presence. The blockade lasted from June 24, 1948 to May 12, 1949. The Allies still were able to figure out a way to supply the natives with food through the Berlin airlift. Planes dropped food off through Berlin in response to the stop of their railroad supplies. After seeing that the people would just get food anyway, the Soviets lifted the ban on the Allied Railroad.
The leaders of the Communist Party devised a plan to build a wall encircling West Berlin to keep people from leaving their controlled land. Life in East Germany was hard because of the unsuccessful communism being applied there. Food was very limited, and job earnings had gone down drastically. Many people were fleeing to the west, where the government was into rebuilding Germany, and food was more accessible to the people. This wall would be responsible for the separation of family, the loss of jobs, and death to anyone who wanted to leave. The wall was constructed overnight on the 13th of August, 1961, and brought shock and grief into the inhabitants. The East German police had put up 97 miles of fencing overnight, equipped with watchtowers, turrets, artillery, and barbed wire. The reason for the construction was due to Soviet leader
Nikita Khrushchev
wanting a divided nation against the powers of the West. Some people were completely cut off from their families, who they had been with just a few days ago. This also made the unemployment rate skyrocket as people had jobs that were over the wall. Anyone who attempted to get to the other side of the wall was immediately gunned down and were really even taken into custody. This made for gruesome scenes, as the Germans wouldn't even clean up the bodies, leaving an example for anyone else who attempted to clear the wall.
It was late at night, around 1 a.m., if I remember correctly. I got a call from the rail traffic controller asking me to come into the railway control center. So I went there, and these two guys handed me this order, and that was the end of that. We were a bit shocked at first, and the mood was pretty tense, but we just had to get on with it. Manfred obeys the order from above and suspends services between Falkensee and Berlin. S-Bahn drivers and passengers all over the area surrounding Berlin are faced with the same situation. S-Bahn trains from Oranienburg, Velten, Potsdam, Stahnsdorf, Teltow and Rangsdorf heading to Berlin reach the end of the line at the wall. It soon becomes clear that this is not a temporary measure. In the days after the wall goes up, the tracks are blocked using barbed wire and buffers. Later on, rails and bridges are often dismantled or tracks rerouted to go around West Berlin.
During this time, the wall made international news. When the new news of the wall was found out in the USA in 1963, President Kennedy gave a speech denouncing the actions of the Soviet Union. He noted many times in German and English, "Let them come to Berlin." He denounced the wall multiple times through many speeches and always made sure to note that the wall had to be torn down. The problem with the wall was that it wasn't even solving any problems of the recently defeated Germany. The wall just made life worse for the German and Belgian citizens entrapped in it. Kennedy's speech triggered a chain reaction of protest about the wall across the USA and Europe.
To lift your eyes beyond the dangers of today to the hopes of tomorrow, beyond the freedom merely of this city of Berlin or your country of Germany, to the advance of freedom everywhere, beyond the wall to the day of peace with justice, beyond yourselves and ourselves, to all mankind. Freedom is indivisible, and when one man is enslaved, all are not free. When all are free, then we can look forward to that day when this city will be joined as one, and this country, and this great continent of Europe, in a peaceful and hopeful globe. When that day finally comes, as it will, the people of West Berlin can take sober satisfaction in the fact that they were in the front lines for almost 2 decades.
In May of 1972, the Transit Agreement was arranged by the Soviet Union to reduce pressure from the protests. This rule allowed for the families in the east side to cross over to the west. The only implication was that it had to be verified that there were a family emergency, which limited what families could do. But this was still progress. This gave the people of Germany hope, as it proved if they tried hard enough, they could eventually get rid of the Berlin Wall. It also rallied Germany as a whole, as it had been divided into 2 nations since 1945. It gave the people of Germany hope for the future and moving on from the past. As more times passed, the rallies and protests got more hardcore about the Berlin Wall. As the Vietnam War ended in 1975, the U.S. could focus more on global issues and the betterment of their allies going forward. This was a peace-filled phase for the people of America, as they were coming off almost 18 years of war. In 1987, Ronald Reagan gave his famous speech about tearing down the Berlin Wall, which would once again put loads of pressure on the Soviet Union and German government. At this time, the Soviet Union was growing weaker to the protest of their controlled territories of Estonia and Latvia.
General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
In 1989, over 1 million people joined a pro-democracy rally, which would be the final straw for the government. Within 5 days of the rally, the Eastern German government collapsed, and they completely resigned after years of pressure from the USA and its people. Reagan's speech provided effective, as it gave the people enough momentum to make them resign. This would lead to the start of the destruction of the Berlin Wall, issued by the government, and would finally give the people of Germany the freedom they wanted for so many years. With the Eastern German government out of the picture, and Germany no longer controlled by the Soviets, the wall became non-existent. The nation of Germany world became whole again in 1990, and democracy was established. The Soviet Union also collapsed in 1991 after
Mikhail Gorbachev
resigned as the last leader of the Soviets. The destruction of the Berlin Wall was also taking place during this time, and it would finally be torn down in 1992. This would end the 27-year reign of the Berlin Wall, and the people of Germany were overjoyed.
The Berlin Wall was accountable for 300 deaths and 28 years of separation. This would be a step forward from Germany's rough past through the century and give the people a country to be proud of.
That ominous barrier between communism and democracy was torn down symbolically yesterday when East Germany opened its borders to immigration and travel. But today, sections of the wall are being knocked down physically, not just by kids, but by soldiers of East Germany as well as citizens. Arthur Kent has been out in the streets and into the neighborhoods that are about to be made whole again after nearly 3 decades.
A neighborhood party, Berlin style.
There's a big hole in the second wall.
On the east side of the Berlin Wall, something new tonight, soldiers dismantling it, not guarding it with rifles. And on the west, the fire department, doing its part to open a road closed 28 years by morning.
I put down this platform because tomorrow we will open the border.
When the wall went up, it carved Berlin in two. Nowhere did that have a harsher effect on its people than here in Bernauer Strasse, where the barrier separated a very closely knit community.